Now we have an interesting concept for a story where it's a what-if scenario purely for the fun of it. Something that I bet the writers had some fun doing, and something that we can't really expect of the later issues in the comic. What if Sonic and Robotnik were kids together? Well, put kids in massive quotation marks because they don't even fucking try to have Robotnik look like a kid. And since he's still treated like one in the story, that's pretty disturbing, as well as immersion-breakingly stupid. At least they make this what-if scenario story feel slightly less pointless by having its framing device be that Sonic was knocked unconscious by a fall and dreamed the whole thing, so it's at least experienced by one character in the universe, even if it's still non-canon. This is an interesting potential backstory for Robotnik, giving him an actual explanation to who he learned his engineering from, learning it from someone that you actually know and care about at that. Even if his being evil is not explained, which is what you actually would care about being explained. But it's a what-if scenario, so it doesn't need to explain that here, and it shouldn't really bother, because it wouldn't be canon anyways. The story seems to unintentionally foreshadow the fact that, yes, in canon, Uncle Chuck was partly responsible for Robotnik learning, or at least getting his roboticization technology rising to power. The what-if scenario has Sonic hating Robotnik from the start, and Uncle Chuck annoyingly defending him because he's an orphan literally from a broken home. That's literally what he says. You wouldn't expect that in a Sonic comic. Robotnik, who lacks his mustache in a terrible attempt at making him look younger and looks terrible for it, causes Uncle Chuck to crash into a wall, which karmatically hurts him as well because he stole the brakes and steering mechanism from his lawnmower in order to make an invention. It's also explained that Sonic got his super speed from a magic ring that Chuck made. This is entirely pointless since this is a what-if scenario, and really, what's the point of explaining this in a what-if scenario? How does he feel fast? How would he know that he was made fast before even running at all? And is Chuck a magician? Because that's the only way he'd have been able to make that. This is obviously not the canon origin for his super speed, and good because that would be a really stupid origin. It's revealed to Chuck why he got hurt because Eggman's robot stupidly tells him all about it in an apology. Why he'd programmed the robot to be that stupid and want to apologize, I don't know. And after Chuck sends Robotnik to his room as an ineffectual punishment that he shouldn't have expected to work, seriously, should have just called the police, Eggman makes a giant robot to attack Chuck as petty revenge. But Sonic creatively ties a garden hose around the robot to defeat it with his super speed, which ends the dream sequence. Seriously, I love how there's so many different creative ways that Sonic uses abilities to defeat the enemies in this comic. It makes Sonic endearing and clever. It makes the writers look like they have a lot of passion from caring enough to think about his powers in the games to the point where they would realize that he'd logically be able to do all that with them. But this story as a whole was pretty pointless. It disturbed me both the way Robotnik looked and the sheer concept of Uncle Chuck raising him as an orphan in general. And I found it really annoying how Chuck was somehow totally oblivious to Robotnik being evil while Sonic wasn't, even though Chuck is supposed to be smart. At least any of the plot holes and logical inconsistencies I could find were rendered moot by it taking place in a dream. Now for a more worthwhile story. Antoine sucks at cooking too? I thought it was just Sally. What's the point of having two separate characters in the same group that suck at cooking? And, I don't know. Why would the Freedom Fighters pull a prank on Sonic and make him think that Rotor's been roboticized? In a universe where that's considered the most horrifying fate, that is seriously not funny territory. Why would they even joke about something like that? The reason they have this getup is because they plan to use it to pass Sonic off as a robot so he can infiltrate Eggman's base and inconvenience him. I assume it's to completely take him down, but with Sally's whispering, we don't really know what exactly their plan is. I don't like Sally calling it a scheme when she's not considering it to be an evil plan, just a plan. But anyways, this story is early installment weirdness, because this whole plot wouldn't have worked if the robots at this point in the comic's history weren't drawn to look the specific early installment weirdness way that they do. So obviously the story hasn't aged very well. Later on in the comics history, the roboticized people don't look like just regular people with goofy eyes and bear trap mouths. They actually have metal. But whatever, it's still a good plan regardless. Of course, the freedom fighters don't want to let Tails in on the plan, possibly because they don't trust him not to mention outside the base now that he revealed to Eggman. How stupid do they think he is? Or maybe they're just worried that if they tell him about it and he's outside the base, then a bad egg will listen in and find out the whole plan early, I don't know. So instead, they make Tails think Sonic was turned into a robot forever, which would logically be pretty traumatizing for him and pretty dickish of them to do. But let's ignore that. Tails' line when he sees Sonic in his robot disguise is really stilted. He just tells the audience what's blatantly happening on the page, which I've heard is something that's common of comics in general, especially for kids, which is really weird because it's a visual medium. You'd think that if there's one media where this wouldn't happen, it would be a visual media because it's totally pointless. You can see what's happening. You don't need the characters to tell you about it. Not to mention, he calls her Princess Sally instead of simply Sally, even though she's his friend, and he must have known her for at least a month. It's kind of confusing. Is he not close to her, or is he just talking to her in a respectful manner because he's a kid? Like, you think that they would be on close enough terms that they would be speaking to each other informally or something. I don't know. Not wanting to hurt Tails, Sonic runs away saying that he wasn't programmed for dealing with two living beings. In such a confusing, blatant lie that Tails looks like a total idiot for not being suspicious of it. I get that he's supposed to assume the robot was badly programmed or glitchy or something, but still. This has never happened with any roboticized person before, as far as I know. And most importantly, the biggest issue this issue as a whole, for someone who just witnessed something as traumatizing as its idol supposedly being a killer robot, possibly forever, he sure gets snapped out of it quick. All from Sally calling him a hero. That makes him look very selfish and egotistical for a so-called heroic character. As if he's so delighted at the idea that he's a hero, that he stops caring about the fact that his own big brother figure was just roboticized. And this was supposed to be funny? This falls flat, and worse than any of the other jokes so far, because this isn't... Normally when I find a joke that I don't find funny, I just don't react to it at all, and thus it's harmless to me. But this joke is just angering. I hate how Tails' characterization is here. Not only does Tails, non-villain character, not seem to care about what happened to Sonic, but he actually brags about himself being a hero in a newspaper, as if that's all that really matters to him. Yeah, it's hard to believe that he turned out to be a hero. Anyways, a buzz bomber goes in to tell Robotnik about the newspaper, and Eggman, who has Sonic in front of him in his robot disguise, says he already has him for himself. And Sonic lies that he fell into a robot maker while disguised as a robot maker. Wait, what? Was he dressed up like a robot maker, or was the robot maker disguised as itself? This is a very confusing line, which is why it's such an obvious blatant lie. It makes Sonic look like an idiot for not thinking it all the way through, just coming up with such a terrible lie. And at least the Buzz Bomber and Eggman get suspicious when Sonic mentions the word disguise foolishly, and they try to get Sonic to tell them the location of Knothole right away. Obviously Sonic doesn't want to do that, and he stalls for long enough that he gets away with the disguise. And Eggman sends him over to the crab compound to prove his loyalty in a hurry. While running by Sally, his bear trap mouth flies off, and he actually hurts Antoine in the process. Of course, he and Sally show no concern at all at Antoine literally having his foot hurt by the bear trap. Seriously, why doesn't he have to go to the hospital? Maybe he does have to go to the hospital, but I can't tell because they don't really seem to care. At least right after Sonic is shown to be a heartless dick, he's shown to indeed have a heart right after. Because seeing his roboticized Uncle Chuck and his dog there too, causes him to get furious and wants revenge. After a kind of heartbreaking moment where he tries and fails to get Uncle Chuck to act like a person and recognize him again, he decides that he can't blow up the factory with Chuck building crab robots there. Why his uncle didn't attack him in his roboticized state and his dog did is beyond me. And instead, in a charming sequence that reminds me of the likes of Bugs Bunny, Sonic tricks Eggman with his disguise in order to press a button to make a bomb fall on Eggman's largest factory, giving up his disguise and going home. This story had a pretty good ending at the very least, as the Freedom Fighters in general were major dicks throughout the story. It's good that they revisited a previously dangling plot thread by having Uncle Chuck show up, revealing what exactly has become of him, and reminding us of Sonic's ultimate sympathetic goal as the hero. He reacts as anyone else in the situation would. Still, the story in general was just frustrating, with the Freedom Fighters thinking that making Sonic think his own friend was a robot was a funny prank, Tails having a very selfish and out-character reaction to his own friend supposedly being roboticized that breaks the willing suspension of disbelief. And the whole plot couldn't have happened later in the comic, where the roboticized people actually look like they're made of metal.